Shabbat Shalom, Hampstead Garden Suburb Synagogue. This week, one of the greatest international heroes of all time in the struggle against global imperialism passed from this world. I'm talking, of course, about Asterix. Well, strictly speaking, Asterix didn't die, but the cartoonist Albert Uderzo died. Why would Asterix merit his way into a Shabbat sermon? According to many, Asterix was actually Jewish, born from the imagination of Uderzo's co-creator, René Goscinny, a French Jew. Asterix's prima facie story was one of a final Gaulish holdout against the Roman imperial forces. As far as Jewish interpretation goes, some suggest that it was an allusion to the Bar Kokhba holdout. Others suggest that Asterix's story is an allegory for the Nazi occupation of France. This week, we open the book of Vayikra. The inaugural parsha is all about korbanot, sacrifices in the Holy Temple. While we no longer have a Holy Temple and animal sacrifice, one aspect that remains is the custom of salting one's bread, which originates in the parsha. V'chol korban minchascha b'melach timlach. You shall salt every offering with salt. You may not discontinue the salt of the covenant of your God from upon your offering. On your every offering you shall offer salt. In commemoration of the salt of the sacrifices week in, week out, every Jewish home begins their Shabbat meals with kiddush, washing of the hands, and then hamotzi with challah dipped in salt. Rabbi Moshe Isserles, the Ramah, comments in the Shulchan Aruch that it is a mitzvah to place salt upon the table before breaking bread, for one's dining table is like the holy altar, and one's food is like the sacrifice. And the salt shields from spiritual forces of wrath. That's what he says, writing in the 16th century, salt shields from spiritual forces of wrath. Why does it have this special protective power? Let's discuss why the Torah requires our offerings in the Holy Temple to be salted. I want to share with you three ideas. First of all, the Medrash says that when God created the world, he created the waters, and then he separates the upper waters and the lower waters. The upper waters, the Mayim, Elyonim, become the Shamayim, the heavens. And then the lower waters say to God, well, that's not fair. The part of us got to be with you. What about the rest of us? Why don't we get to be close to you? God says, tell you what, when the Israelites will have a tabernacle and then a holy temple, I will take from you the salt from your water, and it will accompany every sacrifice so that it will be elevated up to Shamayim as well. So this is the idea of salt on the sacrifices. A second idea is offered by the Paneach Raza, who says that when we enter the land of Canaan, the promised land, we pass through the Jordan River, the Yam HaMelech, the Dead Sea, and the waters parted for us. And the waters then said to God, well, we did a service to the Israelites. What's our reward? God says, you will have an eternal reward. Your reward will be that the salt will be used in every sacrifice. Third idea is brought by Nachmanides, the Ramban. He says that salt either destroys or preserves. Right? Salt, the reason why there's no life in the Dead Sea is because it's too salty for any life to exist. At the same time, if you take salt and you put it into a product, you can make it last for weeks and months and years. It has this preservative ability. It can go both ways. Now, Rav Hirsch says, based on this idea of preservation, that when we see in the verse the covenant of salt, it's because our Torah needs to be preserved. Our covenant with God needs to be preserved. That's the symbolism of salt and its connection between the covenant of Hashem with Israel. I mentioned that there are various interpretations of the Asterix parable. Rav Shlomo Aviner, a French-Israeli rabbi, Rabbi Beit El, and the Rosh Hashiva of Atarei Kohanim, He was once interviewed a number of years ago, and he said, what's the symbolism of Asterix? He says the magic potion actually refers to Torah. It's the story of the Jewish people through hundreds of years of exile, that we were always invincible. We were always able to overpower those who wish to overrun us because we had that magic potion, because we had the Torah. Right now, each of us has our personal village. Our personal village, just like Asterix, that we need to protect against the destructive physical and spiritual forces that are outside our homes. We must secure our families and fortify their physical and spiritual health. The shuls and schools are closed. Each of us now has to be an Asterix and make sure that our homes keep the flame of Yiddishkeit alive with daily and weekly learning and davening gatherings for the members of our small village. What does Nachmanides mean when he says that salt can go either way? It can be either destructive or constructive, protective. You see, salt by itself is actually a destructive force. Ever tried just eating spoonfuls of salt? You can't eat that. That's the destructive forces that are reminiscent of when Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed and Lot's wife turns into a pillar of salt. But if it's preserving Torah, if it's a constructive, preservative force, then it's the most amazing product for our people and for continuity. In fact, even within the word salt, we find both positive and negative aspects. The Kaf HaChaim notes that when we dip our bread in salt, it's because they both share the same letters. Lechem, bread, and melach, salt. And indeed, thinking about the word during these dark days, you think about that word melach and the way that it can protect us. These are dark days of machala, affliction. And we ask Hashem that He has chemla, compassion upon us. We need to reach out to those we might have fallen out with, milchama, lilchom, and offer mechila, forgiveness. We dream cholem, that we will sail malach out of this terrible situation and be on top of things like the vowel sound, the cholam, once again. May the Almighty give us the strength to fortify our villages against the forces of destruction, and may we soon see the day, very soon, when this affliction be over, and that the Almighty grant us the ability to daven and to learn and to live once again in peace and tranquility all together. Shabbat Shalom.